So we just dropped in the chat for folks who just joined us. We are thinking about if this school year had a highlight reel, what's a standout moment you feature from this school year or from this year in general? It can start from the school year. It could be starting from January of this year. And please drop your answer in the chat. Oh, I need to, okay, there it is. Thank you, Sarah, for dropping that. All right. Well, welcome everyone. This is our last session of our Community of Practice series. We've had 3 so far, and this is our last one. And today we're going to be talking about reflect to refine and sustain success, how to evaluate the use and impact of the actions, and support and decide whether to adopt, adapt, or abandon, based on the reflections that we've done. So if you've been with us this whole session, you have had an opportunity to be in the space. And so we're just excited to have you again. If you're new, welcome, and we're excited to have you here with us today. So what our mission in Grad Partner is to partner with communities to use high quality student success systems so that schools can graduate all students ready for the future. We are a consortium of 12 student success organizations, each with decades of experience working directly with schools, school districts, and state education departments to help implement early warning indicators like On Track, MTSS, attendance teams, college readiness, and other student support systems for school improvement. And this is all our organizations. We are, oh, there was a slide. What else am I? We are what you gained today. So for the series, if you join us, as I mentioned earlier, we've been working on providing some tools to foster data-driven decision-making, thinking about some insights on censoring student experience and working with students and doing creating those insights and thinking about those insights. We've had an opportunity to practice designing and testing actions, and we've created a space for collaboration, reflection, and learning to grow. This particular session today, we are going to be thinking about the importance of reflection and how that help us to move forward. And also, we're going to practice engaging in reflection using data to determine next steps and hopefully feel empowered to, in our role, go through an action reflection cycle. Your facilitation team for today is myself. I am Jasmine Furman, data strategist at NCS or Network for College Success, and my amazing colleague, Andrea Cortez, transformation coach at the Network for College Success. So now we would love to hear from you so take a moment and in the chat, share your name, organization, and where in the country you are located. We love to see where people are coming from because we are across the nation and just have a plethora of different perspectives and gifts that we bring. So take a second to do that. Hi, Rachel from St. Louis. Big brother.
It's Appalachia.
Yes.
Philly.
Yeah. Some familiar faces. Thank you for coming again. Arizona. Hi, Justin. Hi, Martha from New York. I'm from New York. Baltimore. Welcome, welcome. Thank you. I love to see all the different places that we're coming from and all the different types of organizations that we're coming from. You have people coming from state departments, organizations that support school districts, support students directly, school districts. Is really awesome to see all our knowledge and brilliance. So welcome. Thank you for being here with us.
Thanks all. And in this community, we really want to center the experience and make sure that we operate out of a set of norms, values, and that we foster a sense of culture together. And so because of that, we have some community agreements that we're asking you all to engage in along with us. First one being we, not me. We want to make sure that we're sharing stories about our experiences and our perspectives, as well as share airtime and listen to others. This work that we're doing, it can be complex, and these answers that we're trying, or these questions that we're trying to solve can have really deep answers. So because of that, accepting non-closure and being okay with not having a complete answer at the end of our time together is something that we want y'all to embrace. The third is making sure that we're using the ideas. The ideas that we gain in this community are exactly what we want to take out and back into our school context. But specifics, details about people's stories, we want to make sure that we keep within the community. We're sharing to learn. Again, listening and making sure that when we do share, it's because we are with the intent of expanding our perspective. And then finally, make room for joy because learning is so fun and we want to embrace that energy in this space together. So let's make sure that we bring in the joy with us throughout this time. Like Jasmine shared, today we're going to be talking about reflecting to refine and sustain our success. Throughout the year, in the chat, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be dropping our participant activity guide. It's a forced copy. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to make a copy of it that is yours to mark up however you want. There's space for notes. And at the bottom, you'll see a plethora of resources, one of the resources in there being the Student Success Team Reflection and Action Planning Tool. This is a really great resource to help us in the support of our reflection of what we're doing individually as well as a whole team. Throughout our time together this year, we have done a lot of work. If you've either watched the recordings or been in the sessions with us, we've started with in January with setting the stage for data conversations and really focusing on how those conversations can help us tell a more robust story about our student experiences and help us be proactive instead of reactive. Then we moved into uncovering root causes. We asked you all to collaborate with students and to do so, particularly with the students who your data shows are furthest from opportunity. And then in our most recent session, we focused on designing strategic student-centered actions, and we wanted to make sure that those student-centered actions were centering on students' assets, so that way we can make sure that that brilliance is what's being activated. Today, what we're doing is we're all about reflection, reflecting to refine and sustain success and evaluate the use and impact of those student-centered actions that we designed. So again, last time Jazz and I guided you all, our participants, to design those improvement actions with the intent to deepen supportive relationships with students. Because those actions that we designed were rooted in data, we're activating our student-centered mindsets by making sure that we were focusing on student assets. And so today we're engaging in reflection of those actions so that way we can help to continue to refine our student success systems so that they enable all students to thrive. So today, like I said, it's all about reflection. And to be explicit, I want to be explicit about our definition of reflection so that we as a community are operating from a common understanding. So when we define reflection here, we're talking about the intentional practice of pausing to think deeply about our experiences and our beliefs and our actions in order to learn and grow. Reflection isn't just about looking back, but it's also about making sense of what has happened, recognizing patterns, and questioning our assumptions. When we center reflection, we're able to see ourselves and our work more clearly so we can move forward with greater purpose and intention in refining those student success systems. Now, why are we asking you all to pause? And why is reflection so important? It interrupts the habit of moving from one action to the next without fully understanding what's working and why it's working. Reflection is a core part of adult learning. It helps us grow both personally and professionally. And when we take time to reflect, we improve faster and more deeply than simply by doing more. Reflection gives us space to slow down that pause and notice what we might be otherwise missing. It also really helps reduce the overwhelm and the burnout. We want to make sure that you as educators are taken care of and that we center your needs and your longevity in this field. So reflection is really an integral part of that. It's where the learning happens. Reflection is where we are able to surface the complexity in our student support systems, and it allows us to lead with our whole selves. So we've talked about why reflection is necessary part of our work, and now we're going to dive deep into attitudes and behaviors that we need to embrace in our leadership and in our collaboration as educators to make sure that reflection is a part of our work. The first behavior I want to surface is intentional meeting preparation. It's really important that our agendas that we create for our meetings align to school-wide priorities and goals. So once we create those agendas, that we look back and say, hey, where's the alignment to what the school is seeking to do this year? When we're intentional about our meeting prep, we really protect reflection time from being squeezed out by tasks, like urgent tasks that could be addressed outside of our meeting spaces, not when the brilliance of all these people are in the room together. The next behavior that supports reflection is bringing in the use of tools and protocols into the work and to support adult learning. These tools and these protocols that we're asking you all to bring in, they help build structures and habits for that reflection. Once we build those structures um, and those habits, then it's easier to adjust and make adjustments to help find the balance between being too overly prescriptive with our reflection and then open-ended. But those tools and those protocols really help us find the tight loose and for reflection. The third behavior that's important is modeling vulnerability, being transparent with our own reflection and our experiences as leaders, as education leaders, no matter the context, if it's in a formal position or if it's just in your leadership in your classroom or other spaces. And that modeling this vulnerability creates a culture where these attitudes that I'll be talking about next really take root and are valued. The first attitude that is important for reflection is embracing that mistakes are learning opportunities. It may feel uncomfortable to highlight our mistakes, but in that discomfort is where we find opportunities for learning and deep learning and innovation. Embracing our mistakes helps us focus on improvement over perfection. And so focusing on improvement over perfection also keeps us from being too fearful of trying something new. The next attitude that is really important for propelling us into reflection is curiosity, humility, and generosity, that those things are valued. There's many ways to get to the same goal, and leaning into our curiosity, humility, and generosity it helps us accept people's different ways of doing things. And again, that's where the innovation lies. It also leads to the encouragement of inquiry over quick fixes, which those quick fixes may not always be sustainable. But if we pause and we slow down and we think about what are different ways of doing it, multiple ways of doing it, that leads to more sustainable change. And finally, the third attitude, the one that I think undergirds all of these, is embracing the slowdown. Thinking of slowing down as part of the work, not a break from the work. We want to give you all permission to be able to breathe. As educators, I don't know how many decisions you have to make in a 50-minute period. So building this reflection time really helps you all take a pause and see things in a different way. So those are attitudes and behaviors that really launch us into reflection. And like I said, it's important to lean into these if you're a team leader, a team member. Also, these attitudes and behaviors I've heard so many times, these are things that we want students to also embody and express. So we as the adults in the building need to model those things for the students. So I want to hear from you all in the chat. If you could put which behaviors and attitudes are already present or would be easy to integrate in your work. Megan, if you can go one slide back so folks can see the different options. Thanks, Jazz, for dropping the question in the chat. Which of these behaviors and attitudes are already present in your work, or could you see be really being easy to integrate? And you can put multiple ones in there. Hmm. Modeling vulnerability, mistakes. Yes, I love seeing these attitudes in there. Intentional meeting prep.
Um,
Yep. Those technical things that really support us.
Intentional meeting prep, use of protocols, vulnerability.
Vulnerability. Yeah.
Intentional meeting prep is popular.
Yeah. Mistakes as
And
learning.
vulnerability, yes.
Awesome. Curiosity, humility. Yeah. So we're all coming here with a lot of strengths and assets already to launch us into reflection. But I'm also noticing that there's, just with everyone, not everyone already comes in with these attitudes and behaviors embedded in their way of being. And so here in this community, it's an opportunity to reflect and to think about how more could I incorporate these different things. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you all into a pair share, a pair conversation, to think about what could shift. If reflection were a core part of your leadership and your success team, not an add-on, what would you need to do differently? What behaviors and attitudes would you need to embrace? And what would that look like in your day-to-day? So we're going to send you all into a pair conversation for 6 minutes. I hope you enjoyed your time with your colleagues, your community, and thinking about if reflection were a core part of your leadership and your success team, not an add-on, what would you need to do differently? And I'm really curious to hear from you all and excited to hear what you all talked about. So if someone from one of the groups could share either out loud or in the chat, what would you do differently? What would you need to do differently?
I'll share out. Let me actually turn back on my camera.
Hi.
Hi, Kiana Harrison. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, work alongside Achieve Atlanta. I spoke with Andrea, I believe it was, let me make sure, Harkins. Andrea, yes. And we had some really great conversation. So we spoke a little bit about the modeling vulnerability and how we believe that's both missing within the districts that we support. So neither of us work directly in a school district, but we both work to support school districts. And one thing that we discussed was that the vulnerability piece feels unprofessional. And so we discussed if we could find better ways to support beyond the data. So both of our organizations within the district, data is like a really important piece. And a lot of time those in the district, they view data as like this aha gotcha moment. Like we're presenting this data not as a gotcha, but a way to make better informed decisions to support our students in order to show up as an organization. And so if we could just implement that vulnerability piece, maybe they will feel more comfortable not only looking at the data, but also discussing ways in order to be supported beyond those numbers, to be supported beyond the data. So that's something that we discussed a little bit of.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And naming the data piece too. Like data should be there to support us to learn and grow and reflect and improve and not be used as a tool for shame and blame, but as a mirror. So thank you so much for sharing. It's great that you all got so much out of it and hold on to those nuggets of wisdom that you got with your partner because that's going to lead us into our next piece. And I'll pass it over to Jasmine to talk about practicing some reflection.
Yeah, I love that. And sorry, I was like, before we jump into practicing, one of the things and how you model vulnerability around data is to like give space to the emotions that come around when we experience and like engage in data conversations. So we have a lot of tools on how you can start even before we even jump into the data, like giving space to the emotions that we feel about it. It always makes it feel better to be like, okay, yeah, I'm scared or I'm anxious or I'm excited, and naming that before we jump in, people always find that helps and to be more vulnerable and more open to the data. So thank you for bringing it up to the space. So we're going to have an opportunity to look at what a team, which was very vulnerable about their practice and something that they tried, and we're going to support this team in thinking about what do you do next. So this team that, if you were with here last time, we had an example of a team that was trying an intervention. They wanted to see if attendance, classroom engagement, and student belonging, really around student belonging, would change if they were more intentional about collecting certain data. So they were tasking with a change idea. They were like, at the end of each of our classes, we're going to ask the students, how did they experience the session today? And we were going to do it in four different ways. For the first week, we were going to ask them to do an individual reflection. The second week, we're going to ask them to share with their friends how they experienced the lesson. And the last 2 weeks, we're going to ask them to find new partners to share their reflection with. So they tried this for a month. And after they tried it, they wanted to figure out what changed in the data they collected. They had made some predictions before they tried it, and they had some tools and ways to collect the data. So what you're seeing here is an example of the reflection that the team did after they completed the intervention for that month. You're going to have an opportunity to review in more detail of their learning of the team. In the next slide, you're also going to see some charts that they collected. They tracked attendance rate in the classroom, also assignment completion rate, and sense of belonging rate, which they did via a survey. And so you're going to have an opportunity to look at anecdotal, qualitative data, and also some quantitative data. And from this reflection, we are going to ask you in trios to think about what the team should do. So I'm sure you've seen this before. If not, there's a strategy that is very common in improvement science. After you finish your PDSA cycle, we ask, all right, so should we adopt this change idea intervention? Should we adapt it, or should we completely abandon it? And so when we decide to adopt something, it's something that we love. We feel like the action met our needs, our successes. It probably went beyond our predictions. And we feel like this action and intervention can be scalable. Like we can now apply it to more classroom, to more grade levels. Adapting it is that we feel good about it, but we feel like it could be tweaked a little bit. Maybe the reflection in this example, student weren't responsive to it. So maybe the question wasn't the right question, but you still feel like it has you have faith in it. And so you feel like you just need to tweak it around a little bit. But you don't want to give up on it yet. And then abandoning the intervention means that you just tried all these different things. You adapted it, you changed it, and it's just not changing any of the metrics or the data that you're trying to learn from. And that's when you feel like this thing that we tested is just not working out. So we're just going to abandon this idea. So we're going to use this data, this reflection that this team did, and the data they collected to decide if they should adopt the intervention, adapt it, and abandon it. So this is a way to think of, because we are going to be, Andrea went into depth of like the importance of reflection, but we also want to be able to go and make decisions after we reflect on what we've tried. So before we jump into trios, I want you to take a second and think about what might feel clear or challenging when considering what to adopt, adapt, or abandon. So just take a second to reflect on this question. As I mentioned, we're going to be going into, we got someone. Thank you, Virginia. How many times or how many tweaks before abandonment? Yes, that is very, like, when do you know? Having inconsistent data collection.
Yeah.
Yes, that is very real. Depending on data, story is telling us. Thank you. These are real challenges, and that's usually when we get stuck. We don't know what to do next, and
Leaning into those attitudes that we talked about can help us
yes.
navigate these uncertainties, these complexities, these challenges.
Mhm.
So when thinking about your challenges, how do you need to lean into curiosity, generosity, humility? What were the other ones? Oh my God.
Vulnerability.
Vulnerability and viewing mistakes as learning opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, guys. So we're gonna go into trios. Before we go in, I want to hold time for some clarifying questions regarding the process or any questions regarding the data. The data is in your activity guide. The table is a little small, but if you zoom in, you should be able to read the text clearly. So any questions about what you're going to be doing in trios? Okay. And as you guys, so take some time in your trios to review the data. Um, I'll say maybe a couple of minutes, and then just make sure that in your conversation, you guys consider these following questions, like what worked, from whom, and under what conditions, and how do you know? And once you have good clarity on that, then decide as a trio if the team should adopt this intervention, should they adopt it, or should they abandon it?
Because preview, when y'all get back, we want to ask you what
Yes.
your trio decided to do. Welcome.
I know 10 minutes is not enough time. Um, we were jumping in and you guys were having great conversations.
Yes.
Okay. So I did hope that you guys made a decision on what the team should do. So based on everything that you've discussed and the data that was provided, what do you think the team should do? So if you can take a second and drop in the chat, maybe you can do A, B, or maybe just write out the actual word. Adopt. Adapt. Okay. Let's see if I
Yeah.
can keep tabs. This is okay. We got a lot of adapt.
A
All
lot
right.
of adapts.
Does anyone want to share about why you think they should adapt and what are some tweaks they can make?
One of the things our group talked about was the attendance and how there was very little change in it compared to the change made in the other data points, and really just wanting to know more information about what time of year this is, what's going on in the community, what are those outside factors that are affecting the attendance, and if there's anything that we can do to adapt that piece to have gains in the attendance area like we do in the other areas.
Oh my gosh, I just heard you leaning into that curiosity.
Yes. I love that. Those are such good questions. So thank you, thank you. And the sample set of students are these students who are chronically absent. Yeah. I love that. I was playing around with the data myself, so I didn't want it to be too good to do an example. So thank you guys for engaging in that and being reflective and using reflection to help this team figure out how they should move forward. So if you can share out loud, we have some time to share out loud. What felt clear or challenging as you consider what to adapt, adopt, or abandon? And you can think a little bit about the process.
While people are maybe writing in the chat, or maybe this can help us jump off, but one of the groups I was popping around, I heard them really sitting with the tension of, is this enough data to help us make a decision? So I thought that was really great as like surfacing as like a challenge for us in making these decisions. And also we have to make a decision at some point.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that is the hard part. It was clear that students felt heard and were more engaged based upon reflection. Yes. I think that's what I really appreciated about um, what the teachers tried was that students felt heard and they also realized that, wow, like they feel empowered because we are asking for their feedback, we're collaborating with them. And that not only brought in student voices, but it brought in the students that were quiet in the classroom into the space as well. And so something that we were trying to get a sense of belonging, brought in all these other things that we learned about our community and our schools. So I think that's what the beauty of it, of trying something and taking that risk, is that you're going to try to learn one thing, but you'll learn so many other things from it. And so that's
I'm
what we
also
always want to like have space for reflection because we learned so much more from what we originally tried.
I'm seeing, Christina, what you put in the chat. We would have liked to see the data from the student exit interviews. Yes, if we're collecting these data, if we're asking these students these questions, looking at it, using it, not just collecting it is really important.
Yeah. right, thank you. As you
Oh.
feel called to, please continue to share in the chat. We also wanted to open up the space to think about how can you apply this process to your context. You know, this was a specific example of reflection, using reflection to then make a decision on how to move forward for teachers and classroom and teams. But I know that you guys support districts, that we have like from big to really micro systems. So how do you think you can apply this to your context? And please feel free to unmute yourself and share out loud or put it in the chat.
I love your framework here because I feel like the questions could even be slightly changed based on whether we're, looking across a whole grant, like what do we learn about each goal that we're working on, or whether it's a classroom or a group of students.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, please take this and like tweak
These
it.
tools are adaptable for you all.
Yes. Okay. As you continue to process, we wanted to remind you that this is a lot of what we've been sharing throughout our series has been connected to everything that you can find on the GRAD Partnership website, and also connection to these we call briefs. And so earlier, Andrea mentioned that we've been kind of taking the pillars and highlighting them in every session. And the one for today that I feel like was the strongest was what we felt was the strongest was the one around strong supportive relationships. As you can see, this team tried this change idea, and they learned so much about relationship with their students and also relationship from student to students. And so as we continue to try these different things, relationship is something that we always want to consider. How do we build relationship with our students? How do we make spaces for students to build relationship with each other? How do we build relationship with the communities that we work with the parents, with teachers? So always centering relationships in all the different areas. We mentioned data a lot, the value of collecting data to provide insight so that they can better support those relationships, and thinking of data in many different ways, quantitative, qualitative. And I think the theme of like also making space for how we feel around data. We don't ever want to use data to harm anyone. We want to use data to help inform us and help us make learning possible for us. And also, I think in the brief, it covers the culture of belonging and improvement. I think these processes also of reflecting and trying is all a way of improving our systems, our structures, so that we can better support each other. So you can find more of that in your activity guide and in this brief that goes into more details on tools that you can try. And with that, thank you so much for being with us. It's been really nice to hold space for you guys for the last couple of months. It's been nice to see familiar faces. Thank you so much for joining us and being with us during this time. If you can take a second to share your feedback for today's session, and we'll drop the link in the chat shortly. You can also just take a picture of the QR code and provide us feedback so we can reflect on how we can make this space better for everyone.
Thank you all. It's been such a pleasure working with you. Enjoy the rest of your day, and good luck with the rest of the school year.
Yes. It's getting warm, so I hope you get an opportunity to be outside more, embrace beautiful nature.
Add more moments to your highlight reel for the year.
And as always, you can subscribe to our newsletter. You can use this QR code, and you can always check us out on X.
Thanks so much for your work today. Bye.